Welcome to Talent Bus, where I talk about talent acquisition with fast-growing SaaS companies. Today, I'm joined by Teemu Uotila, Chief Operating Officer at a company called Quanscient. And today we are talking about going global. What does it mean from hiring perspective, how to decide who to hire, when to hire, how to open up new markets, how to find people on those markets, and a lot more. And let's start today's episode with a little introduction from Teemu.
Yeah, so name is Teemu Uotila. Been on software side and tech industry my whole 20 years of working life. Before that, of course, did some coding and other computer-related stuff. But currently working as a COO at a company called Quanscient, which is a simulation software company. Focuses, of course, on global scale, serving big enterprise customers. And now we are growing the organization from few tens of people to hundreds of people within the next 5 years or so.
Yeah, will be an interesting journey for sure. And today we are talking really about the global part you mentioned. I think there's always two parts on the global. There is of course the customer acquisition. What I've understood around your tool and software, most of your customers are outside of Finland, and especially like as you continue to grow, that will be the case. But also, you will be recruiting a lot of international talents as well, of course in Finland, but on the other markets as well. And today we are really kind of digging deep on how to build an international team. And maybe one thing that where we could start, one thing you mentioned me on our prep call was regarding stories, like kind of how you build up the story around growing a global brand, a global company, and kind of how different is everything from start? Because I think it is a big decision from the beginning, and I think it's for you, it has been a decision that you have made from day one, basically, to build up a global company. So can you share a bit more on the story and the starting point there?
Yeah, on the story side, I mean, you always have to look the employees and then the customer and then stakeholders, sort of. So there are many layers within the story of an organization. So from employee perspective, we of course want to have diverse culture and people feel comfortable in there no matter where they are located. And from customer perspective, we want to convey continuity of the organization, and that even though we are a startup, there's no need to worry as we get grow bigger and bigger. Since working with big enterprise customers, of course, that they always wonder, well, what's going to happen to these startups? That's a quite regular story. And then from stakeholder perspective, we of course need to convey that we are eager to grow, eager to get bigger, international, and having this unicorn status at some point reach. So there are multiple different stories that you need to, of course, convey. Of course, they all align in a roadmap sense, but how we like to split it is that we'll take, let's say, 2 to 3 years time span, and then have certain X amount of revenue within that time limit. And then we start to dissecting it backwards, sort of like reverse engineering. And then we see what kind of roles we require, where we require, and what kind of customers we want to attain. And of course, we can understand how much capital we're going to need in order to get that. So sort of all these need to be told out, not through Google Sheets or Excel files, but also that this is the way we're going to get there. And that's sort of like a thing where people can then gravitate, be they employees, customer, or investors. So that's sort of like a core thing that we always try to emphasize, that people not look at the current state, but focus on what's gonna happen in future.
Yeah, exactly. I just recorded an episode roughly a week ago with a company called Sales Screen, and we were talking about hiring triggers. So basically, kind of what triggers a company to hire some person on the team, whether it's head of sales or COO or developer or salesperson or whatsoever. And it of course depends a lot on your funding status. For example, they've been bootstrapping for a long time, raised some money on the side. Now they are quite, I would say, stable company, whereas you are still, I would say, kind of still starting up, even though you already have
Yeah.
a plus 20 people on the team. But maybe for listeners, a bit background on the business situation as well, because I think that helps to really understand how you are scaling the team as well.
Yeah.
So are you still mainly focusing on building the product, or do you have already customers that are paying for the product, or where you are kind of going with the whole company roadmap at the moment?
Yeah. I mean, naturally, we already have paying customers, so the ARR is starting to be there. And we did our product launch spring last year, so it has been all quite recent that we have launched the product. Before that, we were in development mode. But of course, it's always finding the product market fit over and over again. It's just not a one-time thing. Let's say when we ramp up our customers to startups to enterprise level, of course, that requires different kind of approach. But what we actually do is quantum technology and classical physics simulation. So there are two different layers within the organization itself. Let's say you are a chip manufacturer and you want to figure out that your new chip has some thermal cooling topics that are worrying. So you need to simulate that before you go into production with that chip. So for instance, we can do that kind of simulation. And in future, when we are, integrating our quantum stuff within our actual product, well, everyone knows the quantum computers are still, work in progress, so to speak. But if you want to simulate an airplane, it's a massive CFD simulation that you require supercomputers, and even modern day supercomputers cannot do it with a good accuracy. So with the quantum side, you will get way more computational power, which then enables you to do these big scale simulations. And naturally, our customers don't really care, in a sense, if the simulation is done on the classical physics side or the quantum side. They care about the end result, and that's sort of like where we want to approach this. But we really see that the whole quantum computing is one definite way in the future if you want to conserve energy, if you want to be more efficient, and if you want to have more accurate results. But we still have to wait for that. And for that, we of course have our classical physics simulation that runs our current business, and I am pretty sure it will run the business for a very long time. But of course, organizations need to evolve as time goes on.
Yeah. But sounds like you are building a product that takes quite a lot of money to get there, and therefore it's quite capital intensive area.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it requires a lot of talented people working on be that on the classical physics side or the quantum side, and of course the engineers to make it happen, salespeople to sell it, and marketing people to make it visible. So yeah, it's multi-talented approach that we need to have here. And if you compare a consulting house versus a product house, I'd say the composition of the organization is a bit different. We're in a consulting house, it's mainly focusing on individuals doing billable hours, while on the product house, you need a bit more evenly distributed personnel amongst there. You need your sales and evangelist marketing, and then you need your product development, of course, and then the research and development department. So I'd say that if a normal ratio on a consulting house would be 1 people working on billable work, 1 people in some other capacity in the product development house, it's usually should be 1/3 on each category in order to get the best results out of it. And with that, of course, since the money doesn't roll in right away, it's like you said, very very capital intensive in the beginning. But once you get it rolling, then of course it's starts paying out a bit more.
Yeah, of course. But hey, then if we look at the kind of international growth and hiring people for that one, like how do you go about that one? Like kind of deciding where to hire people, because I think there are a few things. There are maybe on the tech side of things, it might be that hey, okay, we just need good people that have experience from from this area, and it really doesn't matter if they are, living in Berlin or Finland or Brazil or, wherever basically. And then maybe for more commercial roles, let's say you want to open up the German market, you need a maybe country director or head of sales over there or so forth. So can you share a bit more like how you look at different hirings and location of hirings especially?
Yeah. Well, that also comes from the reverse engineering and storytelling that I was referring earlier, that once you have the number of revenue that you want to hit, the number of people you need there, and then you start compiling teams based on that. And of course, it's very relevant to know your key markets, like you said, Central Europe and Germany and US. So of course, those are going to need some local representation because the time zones will be sort of like pain to be handled. If you have a 10-hour time difference between Finland and California, that's very straining for all. So you need to have these localized units, of course, in place. And hiring, of course, it's very difficult, and it's finding the right kind of talent is especially when you're doing discussions remotely. It's doesn't always convey how the person actually is. So it is very, very critical. And that's why we like to approach so that we have at least 3 different, interviews set up with the individual, of course, in a very, very short time span in order to get a good perspective on many different parts of the organization against that individual. So that we know that if the individual itself would be suitable from competence perspective, cultural perspective, and team dynamics perspective. So those are the key things what we focus on. And so far we haven't done any misses with the hiring, but I'm pretty sure that as we more gas into the organization and speed up, those are inevitable that you might have this. And that's sort of like a problem with a startup, and especially well-funded startup, that you start hiring people left and right because growth is demanded, and then you wake up 2 years later and see that, well, yeah, okay, so we have quite many roles and we don't necessarily know what people are doing here even. And then of course you need to do some adjustments in there. So, but that's a situation that we want to, of course, avoid, and having a good hiring processes and then partners is of course a key thing.
Have you seen a big difference, not knowing your background, I would say especially well the Finnish software market. I think of course having networks, but still like also really knowing what kind of skill set you can get with what kind of money and so forth.
Yeah.
And I would say one kind of big thing that I feel like most companies are missing when hiring is like they're very good at kind of doing a list of things that like we want to have as a company, but most people are quite bad at looking at the market and realizing what they can really get from the market with the benefits they are offering their brand and so forth. But how have you seen it, having that experience from the Finnish market, but then let's say going to, let's use Germany and head of sales as an example, for example, like going to market that you might not know, going maybe to a role that you don't know that well, like how to really figure out like if you are getting the best possible talent there. Like, is it hard, or have you used some local partners to help you up with that one, or have you just learned it yourself?
Yeah, we like you said, I always find it funny when, for instance, you look at LinkedIn postings and you see 20 different bullet points from organization, what they are expecting from the individual, and then you see 3 bullet points what they're offering. So that's always very silly. But yeah, of course the local consulting market is it's sort of like different when looking from product house perspective. I say once you have this good solid story built around the product itself, people gravitate more towards the the product and not necessarily focusing on the individual aspect, but sort of like what do you want to achieve on a bigger scale. So that sort of like eliminates the not suitable candidates in a early phase. And in my perspective, it also helps the candidates to sort of like think through the product lens on what is required from their end, what is their angle within the organization, and how they can help with their skills. So for this, when we expanded to Germany, we now have actually 3 people working in there. Sales-oriented people, 2 of them, and one is our application engineer. So we have used a local partner or this organization who does the paperwork, but of course at some point we do want to maybe have our own corporation or LLC over there. But finding these people we have done remotely, and so far at least it has been quite successful, because we have been very sort of like stringent on what we want and what kind of personalities we need. So it's been relatively easy. Of course, let's say that we put our SDR job posting out there, and we got I think altogether maybe 100 of candidate applications. So that of course is very time consuming, but once you have competent people around you who can do the vetting and their background before going to the interview phase, it sort of like diminishes the time spent with the interview phases, and of course most likely finding a suitable candidate. But I say that still organization need to always think that there's a reason why there is this trial period in the beginning, of course, and you should of course have your key metrics in there and have a regular checkups on if it's on both sides, if it's on the right track, and then recognize if something is wrong, and if it can't be fixed, then accept the situation that maybe this is not working out, and that is highly important that you have a regular sync-ups with your people on this matter.
Exactly. And I think what comes to the recruitments, what you mentioned and what has helped you clearly is like really having a clear understanding what you are looking for. And I think profile definition is one of the most important parts of the project. I'm not sure about the exact number of how many recruitments we have done for our customer, but it's a lot of recruitments, and we failed in two cases. And it's interesting what is the common factor between both of these 2 recruitments is that both of them cases, they were totally new roles within the organization. And because this is something we see quite often, like let's say you are hiring for a sales role and you have hired already, let's say 10 salespeople, and who are the ones performing the best, and you kind of know what you are looking for, and same goes for developers. But in those cases, they were completely new roles for the customers, 2 different customers, and there was a lot of discussions around what they are looking for. And kind of fun fact, both of those customers are happy customers, even though we failed on the project and we didn't find the people that they needed, because they learned so much during the process on what they are actually looking for. And I think, for example, in both of those cases, we also made a big mistake that we starting to look for kind of unicorn people in a way. And well, it wasn't what you said, like 20 points list and 3 things to offer, but still a bit too many. And especially the other one was in a new market that we didn't know so well. So we thought that it is possible to find a person like this, but then eventually there just wasn't people like that within the budget range. And it was a long project, a lot of learnings, but still super valuable, market insights for customer regarding that. Hey, you most likely cannot find these kind of people, so we need to either increase the budget or look maybe for a bit more junior person or something like that. So that's very nice to hear from you that you have succeeded in a lot of like new roles as well.
But I'd say it's easier in a product house once you know how to gravitate and how do you spec out the role. But I can feel for you that whenever an organization creates a new role, the role is created from one perspective. So you only have that one perspective in the beginning, and then it starts to clarify on what is actually expected. And so you might think that you need needs sales people, for instance, but at the end of the day, you might need some back office people who are doing finances and make sure the invoices roll. So these things happen. So I can definitely feel the pain in there. And of course, when you discuss with that specific organization about the role and need to specify, then they are in a bigger organization, especially, then they would need to check few other departments. How does the role match those department needs? And that sort of like creates sluggishness and additional pain from the role perspective. And it's not a fun place to be creating new roles.
Yeah. How do you kind of navigate there regarding, new roles? You mentioned regarding your kind of hiring plans that, okay, hey, here are the, business goals that we are reaching, and then figuring out how many people we need. And then at least typically most SaaS companies in your situation, there are team leaders who are basically responsible on, hiring for their teams, and maybe they have their own budget to go for. And then, there's someone looking at the whole budget, and you are in the funding game, so there is like X amount of euros that you can burn each month, and then everyone is fighting against like, hey, I need one person here, I need one person here, but then eventually you are not able to hire everyone you wanted because of the fact that you need to keep your burn rate on a certain level. So like, how do you really balance on who to hire next? If you now think, for example, your next upcoming hires, like how do you really in action, what happens when you make the decision?
This is actually good. As last week we were with the leadership team having our offsite, and we went to hirings. We had two different scenarios. One scenario had us hiring, I think it was 5 people. The other one had 12 people. But it was nice to see that at least among the leadership team, the perspective was quite good on a sense that what is needed, what is required to get to a next stage. So I'd say that once again stems from the story, that once everyone understands the story, it's not what you can get into your business unit, but what sort of like supports the growth as a whole. And I was quite surprised that even though every part of the organization has needs and requirements in this role, we created this consensus on very fast pace. I'd say maybe 20 minutes, and we were all in agreement that yes, these are the roles that we needed for the next phase of the growth. And actually, that's easy to do, since we are still a smaller company. I'd imagine that once we are 200-300 people, we are not gonna go specific roles through leadership team, but then it comes down that you have your business units working autonomously and having sort of like a budgetary restraints or whatever restraints that are there to do, and then just have them to execute those as best they see fit. And I think the autonomy is important, and the transparency in there, so that everyone knows what's happening in every part of the organization. Of course, the downside for that is that when information is transparent and plentiful, it can be very straining for individuals to keep track on everything that's happening within the organization.
Yeah, but I think it's a thing that you just need to be doing while you grow, and of course different growth stages is different. But I already noticed, like even though we are now a team of 6 growing, but still there are some things that I'm trying to kind of get rid of, and just make the decision that, hey, this is a thing that I don't need to know about. And sometimes it feels quite bad because you have the feeling that you need to have control on things, and then it's really about trusting people around you that they know more than you know about the topics, and they can make the decisions. And the same goes with hiring, for example. Yeah, I think in this stage, like, CEO still should be part of the hiring process, but still I'm kind of trying to get myself out from there a bit, especially when Saara and Siir, my co-founders, are hiring for their teams. I always say to them that, hey, I trust your decision, you can make the decisions. Of course, in the end, I still discuss with the people, but still, like, kind of trying to get away from from there. And as we continue to grow, the more you need to do that one in order to make sure that you are not becoming the bottleneck of your growth.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that every founder should definitely reflect on, how to let go and sort of like free the reins. And it might be difficult since, it's after all, it's your baby, so to speak. So you want to cultivate and see it grow and know what's happening. But at some stage, it's good to recognize that, I don't need to be involved in everywhere, because then you become the bottleneck within the organization, and that's not good.
Yeah. How do you see, like, I've been thinking lately regarding, the selling points. We kind of talked earlier, like you have the 20-point list on the things that we are looking for, and then you have 3 points that you are offering, and those 3 points are cool culture, nice colleagues, challenging work, or whatsoever. But what I've seen lately is like, and I think it goes especially with what is happening on the financial market and backing SaaS companies and all that. When working with bigger companies, actually one of the best selling points are that, hey, we are financially stable companies. We just did a project, for example, with M-Files, and they've been around for 30 years and they're a very stable company. And it's quite easy to get people to their recruitment process, and that is one of the selling points. They are super open about their career side as well, and so forth. But then at the same time, joining a startup at your stage is it's a big risk for sure.
Yeah.
And of course, you have the good things there. But like, how do you balance between, selling the opportunity, like, hey, this is something cool that we are building here, at the same time, not overselling the opportunity, because then you will have a problem with your retention if someone joins and the day-to-day life is something completely else that they thought. We both know working in a startup, it's not easy. It's fun, you learn a lot, but it's not easy for sure. Like how you are selling the opportunity to join your company.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And like you said, it's good that the candidates recognize on what kind of organizational environment they are okay to work with. I mean, you're a big company, you can offer stability, and some people, especially times like these, would value those. So because it also relates to how good the demand in the market is for your specific skill set. But yeah, every time that we discuss with a hire, we of course tell them openly that this is a startup, anything can happen. We can pivot, we can do whatever. So it requires the right kind of mindset for individuals, sort of like this tolerance of uncertainty. And that's something, of course, we want to have a discussion in an early phase. And especially when you're a smaller company, you might need to have multiple roles, and you might not always have time to focus on that specific thing that you are there to do. But these are the things that we like to go on a recruiting phase and sort of like make sure that the individual understands on where they are coming to. And I always ask in the interview phases that if you look, if you were to be hired here and we take 1 year into the future, what should have happened in order for you to be totally pissed off? And that sort of like gives a individual time to reflect on what is from their point of view, what they expect from the organization. And that's sort of like a good question in a sense, at least in my mind, because it makes you think then on what you do not want from the role and from the organization. And if there are some, things that you recognize that, this might not actually be that good of a fit, then, both can move on. And, but yeah, I'd say those are, and of course, when you come work with us then, and you're not a candidate anymore, we of course go openly with the situation of the organization on how's the runway, what are we doing to increase the ARR, how we are approaching funding, what are the funding stages. So creating this roadmap for individuals also that, we are not profitable yet, but these are the actions that we are doing in order to get there and in order to secure the capital and the future for all. So it comes down to the once again, storytelling in that sense.
Yeah. And it's interesting, at least what we've seen is more and more candidates are actually, for example, asking around the runway. We just work on a talent acquisition manager role for one SaaS company, and I did some headhunting on the role, contacted people on LinkedIn, and there was few people that ask like, hey, how long is the runway with this company? And it's weird because that is a question that no one asked like 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I feel like it's a new question for kind of lower level jobs. Of course, if you were looking for, let's say, CTO or CFO or COO, those people did ask the question. But nowadays, if I'm hearing that kind of question from TA manager or salesperson or marketing person, it tells a lot about the where we are at the market. Yeah, very interesting.
Definitely.
One interesting topic regarding kind of leadership, and now in what time zones do you now have people? Like, do you still have all the people in Europe, or do you already have people in the, let's say, States or in different time zones?
Yeah, we currently have only in Europe, so and 2 different time zones in there. But for instance, we do have customers in US and in Asia, so we are operating on a multiple time zones here. But currently, yeah, we only have European Union region, and look, within the next funding round and then such, then of course it's very important that we looking to open the US office to build more local presence in there.
Yeah. How do you think that will, change the way of? Go ahead.
Yeah, because I was actually maybe just touching upon what you were going to ask. So yeah, then that sort of like changes the operational model that we have and how the team dynamics work, and we do need to build up, sort of like this umbrella working culture, working habits, and sort of like a framework on how we do stuff. Because if you're going to start building them on the fly when we go over there, it might get sort of like there might be disappointments, like we were discussing in a recruitment phase, that the individuals don't necessarily know what they are, getting themselves involved to. So when we're going to roll into a new country, we do need to have these sort of like working agreements in place on how we do stuff, because then the individual knows that what they're getting into.
Makes sense. I've been thinking a lot about that topic. We have actually same situation. We do have some hiring managers that are working in the US, and sometimes we have kickoffs with them or weekly with them. But I think that's still quite simple. But if at some point, let's say, we have team members over there, that kind of changes the game. And one thing that like I'd be really focusing as a leader is kind of the scalability of the business. So like we have so many things now in place that we wouldn't need as this size of organizations. And I've been thinking a lot, like, is it a waste of time? We have a lot of processes, a lot of stuff that I would say most agencies, let's say this size, they would never dream of. They never had that one. And I'm thinking, like, am I crazy to use time for there? But then at the same time, I'm building up for that scaling phase as we continue to grow, and that one will be way easier because of that one. But then at the same time, I'm kind of balancing between focusing all of your time to current problems, and then also solving the future problems as you kind of go. But how do you personally find the balance between current problems and solving future problems already?
Yeah, I definitely share your perspective, and I would do the same, or we are doing the same, because you need to build the organizational foundation from the beginning. Then you have something concrete to build upon. I mean, if you just do it ad hoc and wing it, it's it's going to be difficult to fix later on if you find that, okay, well, this thing doesn't work. But if you have a solid foundation and framework in place, it helps individuals to get familiar on how the organization is going to work, and it should be sustainable a bit longer. to support organizational growth. Of course, at some point you might need to redo stuff, but at least, you have a setup that you are pretty sure that can carry you to the, let's say, 100 people, and then you might need to do the revamp in 200 people, and that's totally fine. But I also like to build sort of like this structure in place because it helps people gravitate, and then, and not necessarily having a process for process's sake, but for the individuals to check that they know how things are done. And if in doubt, then you know at least whom to ask. And they should be more in a sense of a guideline, not necessarily a strict rule, but so that people can get some understanding on how to operate.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you got a lot of good ideas about SaaS talent acquisition. If you enjoyed the episode, feel free to share it on your social so others can hear it too. And if you have a topic in mind that you would like me to cover in this podcast, share it with me as well. I'm Samuli, CEO and co-founder in TalentBee, where we help fast-growing SaaS companies in their talent acquisition. Make sure to follow us, make sure to follow this podcast, and have an awesome week. Bye-bye.